here. Supervisor Beatty, is he on? I'm sorry, no. Supervisor Diamond?
No.
Supervisor Driscoll, I know I heard him.
I assume. Thank you.
Supervisor McDevitt and Supervisor Scheffler. So that's enough, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting? That's moved by Supervisor McDevitt and seconded by.
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Scheffler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. This morning we'll start off with assigned counsel. Our first request will come to us to reapprove the assigned counsel plan to include minor corrections that were required by the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services and made by the County Attorney's Office. That rationale below in your agenda this morning states that the committee and the board approved our first version of this assigned counsel plan via resolution number 27 in 2019. At this point in time, can I have a motion to get it on the floor for discussion? Thank you again, Supervisor McDevitt, and that's seconded by Supervisor Leggett. Thank you. Here with us today, we have Joyla Fountain and also Supervising Attorney, Mr. Gregor. Would either of you like to address the committee this morning?
Yes, I would.
Thank you, Joy.
I had two other items I tried to get on the agenda, apparently too late.
Wait, may I just interrupt for one moment? Can everyone online hear her okay? Mike, okay, we got a thumbs up.
I'm only taking some.
No, you're fine if they can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I attempted to get two other items that have to do with grant funds on the agenda and was told no. I would request at this point to have an emergency meeting first week of December to get these items on. They need to be addressed before the end of the year.
Thank you for obviously bringing that up, but also for recognizing that there's a need coming up that we need to talk about before the end of the year. I have absolutely zero problem with setting this on an agenda in December, but so that the committee is aware, we have worked very hard with our clerk of the board, with Amanda Allen, to set a policy and procedure that applies to every single committee member and to every committee chair. And it would be hypocritical of me to allow it in my committee and yet be critical of other chairs. So this came to my attention after the deadline passed, after consulting with our county administrator. It was determined that in fact, this was the right decision to have this move over to our next meeting. So Joy, you and I can definitely talk offline and make sure that we have that set on an agenda before the end of the year so that none of your operations are impacted, but yet it will give notice, transparency and accountability to all of our committee members, but also information in time for our taxpayers. Okay, if you leave that with me, I can make sure that everyone gets a heads up on it. But let's for today talk about the resolution that's in front of you and was approved to be brought to the floor, which is your request here.
Okay, any questions? I'm pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of simple changes.
Supervisor Leggett.
Yeah, thanks, Chairwoman Seaver. Yeah, so we adopted that plan after a long time coming, right? It took a lot of work, and there were some early revisions to get it adopted, and then they reviewed it again, and this is what
That's what the Office of Indigent Legal Services requested.
Yeah.
If you look at the synopsis, articles that were modified.
Yep.
And then the suggested changes that we did not modify because they were suggested, and we believe that the two that we left as we had were pretty much what they should be.
Right, and is that the records retention part there instead of the lifetime?
We're sticking to 7 years.
And that's pretty much,
That's the standard.
yeah.
I mean, I don't, they could fill up the old jail with all this stuff if they wanted to for a lifetime, but I'm not going to be here. So, doesn't matter to me if they keep it or not, but I think 7 years is
It
funny.
might be a good use for the old jail.
It just might.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Is there any questions from anyone on Zoom this morning? Anyone in the boardroom?
You've got one. Andrea Hogan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hogan. Supervisor Hogan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Sorry about the barking dogs. Just a quick question. What's the difference between arraignment and first appearance?
Yeah, Supervisor Hogan would like you to just define the difference between arraignment and first appearance.
Well, then I have the supervising attorney.
Without objection?
No objection, I wasn't sure. Good morning, Supervisor. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so very good question, first of all. By and large, arraignment will be the first appearance, but you could have a situation where somebody is, say, a material witness who gets brought before the court or gets brought before the court for some other reason where his or her liberty interests or some sort of civil rights are in jeopardy, at which point in time counsel might be appropriate. Obviously, that would be made on a very fact-driven basis, but theoretically, there is a world out there beyond just arraignments, but it's not. The vast majority of first appearances are arraignments. That is correct. Does that answer your question, or did I get too early there?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. As a reminder as well, Mr. Lehman just asked that while the audio is fine on YouTube, those of us in the boardroom will need to speak a little bit louder into our microphone. Are there any other questions this morning regarding this resolution? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Are there any new items to come before assigned council this morning? No? Thank you very much. And we'll move on to I have probation, but okay. It's okay, Mars. All right. Good morning, Director Yusi.
Good morning.
This morning on our agenda, we have 3 requests for action items. The first one in front of you is to enter into a contract with Warren and Hamilton Counties Committee for Economic Opportunity for an alternative sentencing program. This is the amount of $60,000 for the term January 1st, ending December 31st of 2021. This alternative sentencing program, which is community service, is a viable sentencing option to our courts in Warren County. Can I have a motion to get this on the floor, please? That motion is moved by Supervisor Shepler, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Director Yusi, would you like to talk a little bit about this first request?
Sure. This is a contract we've had going past probably over 10 years with Community Action for an alternative sentencing program. This year, it was time to send out a request for a proposal to see if who's interested in doing this program in the community. Community Action was the only one that responded. And they initially came in with a request of $70,000. And due to the economic times we're in and what we budgeted in the past years, they were gracious enough to do it for $60,000. So they came down to what we did it for last year. With that, though, we'll have to do another RFP at the end of the year because we did negotiate down, but they're willing to do it for $60,000. This year, it's a community service program that serves our local courts and is something that's needed within our community as an alternative to incarceration.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions regarding this? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairwoman Seaver. Bob, do you have numbers on how many people they handle and how is this a diversion program basically?
Not really a diversion program. It's used in the local courts and in our county court for drug court. For instance, if usually it's a young offender, low-level offender, instead of giving an individual jail time, probation, community service hours are used. In a typical year, they probably deal with 250, 275 cases. Last year, due to COVID, obviously, a lot of things were shut down, so their numbers were a lot less, probably a little over 100, but on a given year, it's about 275. We use it in our drug court quite a bit for sanctions on felony level. When the when the participants don't do everything that's expected. So by having that in place, we do save jail beds in jail time. And so for that respect, it's used quite a bit across the community.
Okay. And the funding for this comes from?
The funding is from county dollars, and we get about $5,000 through 13A state money. But the interesting part, we have not heard anything from the state on our alternative to incarceration grant. So they've been pretty quiet. We've asked, and to date, there's been no application for that because the program goes from, the state grant goes from July 1 to June 30th. So majority of it's county money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Are there other questions on this? And I am watching the blue hands too, for those of you on Zoom. I promise. Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question on the first resolution then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. That moves us to our second item in front of us this morning. That's to enter into an agreement with Waite House for an independent living skills program in the amount of $10,000 commencing on January 1st, 2021. This is for the supervision and treatment of services for juvenile programs. We often call this STSJP. Funding has been made available to develop an independent living skills program for youth through Waite House. Can I please have a motion to put that on the floor for discussion? That motion is moved by Supervisor Scheffler, and that is seconded by Supervisor Leggett. Thank you. Director Yusi, would you like to talk about item number 2?
Yes, this is a result of our recent meeting with the two committees of Criminal Justice and the Social Services Committee, where we expanded our STSJP funding. And as a result of it, we're able to contract with Waite House for $10,000 to do independent living skills program. And what that would entail would be basically conflict resolution, time management, stress management, hygiene, interview skills, job application, how to do a budget, things we all take for granted. But with some of our younger population and our at-risk youth, those are things that aren't easily attainable by these individuals. So this program will assist them in doing it. The Waite House, as many people know, is a homeless youth respite shelter. We use them. We work with them frequently. They're very good, and their reputation is super in the community, and we look forward to contracting with them for this program.
Great. Any questions regarding that? And I just want to thank Supervisor Driscoll as well for making it a priority. We called a meeting last month, and it was out of our regular schedule, and certainly appreciated the time for both committees to talk about it.
Thank you.
But at this time, are there questions? Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Chairwoman Seaver. Again, how many young people are affected by this, get to take advantage of this program?
For this program, with the $10,000, that will allow 8 individuals to be involved with that program.
Okay.
And I think what we can do through the years is evaluate the numbers we have, and if we find that we have a lot more kids, then maybe we can talk about that next year to expand the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions regarding this resolution request? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Our third request this morning is to enter into an agreement with Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Southern Adirondacks for mentoring services in the amount of $22,140. This would commence on January 1st, 2021. Again, this is that previous funding we just talked about that would be available for mentoring our youth through that program. Can I have a motion to get this on the floor, please? That motion is made by Supervisor Diamond and seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Director Yusi?
Yes, thank you. And again, this is a result of the Supervisor Siebert indicated of the STSJP funding. Big Brothers Big Sisters, again, another evidence-based great community provider in our area, is going to do a mentoring program for at-risk youth. We previously had used Big Brothers for Raise the Age money for mentoring for Raise the Age youth, where kids are between 16 and 18. This will allow us to use them for all the at-risk youth, our PINs, our JDs, social services, the kids that come into contact with preventive and CPS. So by using this money for this purpose, we're going to be able to expand the kids we refer to big brothers and big sisters. Their mentoring program is great. If anybody's done any research on it, I mean, that's one of the key things to help individuals create pro-social activities in their life, and we look forward to, again, expanding our services with them.
Well said. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Yuzi? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. That addresses our 3 items that were resolution requests. At this point in time, would you like to give an update, Director Yuzi, at all about how criminal justice reform, bail reform, any information regarding release under supervision, how that's impacting your department or the criminal justice system?
Yes. Bail reform, release under supervision. Many times last year and early this year, we talked about the new statutory requirements for bail reform and how that would impact our department. So now that we're towards the end of November, and again, these are the legislation that basically eliminated the option for bail for the courts. To date this year, we've received 161 release under supervision cases from our criminal courts. And as we sit here today, we have 78 open cases. Basically, what that is on a typical year, that's double what we would do. So we've doubled the amount of release under supervision cases that have come into our department. And this is also taking into effect the shutdown where the courts were shut down. We didn't pick up cases there. So it probably would have been more. But this is something we anticipated. So we set the infrastructure up with our department. We have the ability to see people. We have phone contact, and we also have something called CE check-in with our case management system, where they can actually check in online, after a series of questions, determine that it is the individual, and that also has the ability to do GPS mapping of where they're coming in from. So we were prepared to do it. It's something we can handle. But it, certainly been somewhat of an impact. But again, we planned for it, and it's not been a burden to our department.
Thank you. And as we're talking about some of those new impacts, maybe some of you missed the recent podcast that Director Yuzi did, but I know that Don Lehman shared it on our social media sites. I think it was a podcast, wasn't it, Bob? With NISAC?
It was supposed to be done in conjunction with Saratoga County Probation Director Steve Bale, but his audio wasn't working properly, so he got cut off. So if it sounds like there should have been somebody else there, there really should have been somebody else there. But I think they did a pretty good job of making it work.
Well, thank you very much for continuing to be a leader at the state level for our county, Bob. You do a great job, and it's always nice to continue to hear NISAC highlight your initiatives that you work so hard for here in our county.
Thank you.
Are there other new items to come to the attention of Director Yuzi this morning? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Bob, these doubling cases, how's that on your staff load?
It's been something we like I said, we prepared for, so it really hasn't been a burden. We've automated our the way we do business, and we have more options, which make it easier on our personnel. So it really hasn't affected us.
Thank you.
And just to highlight a note from Supervisor Driscoll on the chat, which I know the public can't see, but I definitely want it to be able to read it. He makes a very good point that in his opinion, each of these agreements that we've approved today in committee are sound returns on our investments. And the data shows both quantitative and qualitative results. Point well taken, Supervisor Driscoll. Thank you. If there's nothing else to come before this committee, and I neglected to do this during assigned council, Mr. Lehman, is there any type of public comment that you've been notified of?
No, Chairwoman Sieber, we have no public comment on YouTube right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Our last item in front of us this morning comes from our public defender's office. At this point in time, our public defender, Marcy Flores, is here. We have 2 requests for resolution in front of us. The first being a resolution to amend an existing contract. That contract provides outside counseling mentoring services. This is to add a commencement date of February 1st of 2020. And we are going back a little bit, and Marcy will talk about why that's required, and a termination date of exhaustion of grant funds to our existing contract. At this point, can I please have a motion to get it on the floor for discussion? That motion is made by Supervisor Driscoll and seconded by I'm looking right at Supervisor Diamond and thinking about Supervisor Driscoll.
I'll go.
Ben, do you mind?
No, fine.
Okay, great. So now it's seconded by Supervisor Diamond. Thank you, Jack. Marcy, could you please talk about our first request this morning?
Sure. That deals with our mentoring and help program with the attorneys in the office. There's someone assigned to them. Have someone assigned to them to assist them when they're preparing a trial and doing a trial. Once this resolution, the original resolution was passed, we hired someone. We had a trial. The case was eventually dismissed. So that was great. The mentor did a great job, but apparently we did not realize that I was supposed to put in a start date and a termination date when funds are exhausted for the contract. That I was not aware of that, and we have already expended funds.
Are there questions regarding this? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairwoman Seaver. And you expect these funds to go over a period of time,
Correct.
Right? How long was your projection on that?
It would be under the Harrell Herring 5-year plan, and we are in year 2 right now. And the way this is written this way is until the grant funds are extinguished, because obviously they're ongoing, and we have continued to use mentoring services since that first trial on 2 others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions regarding this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. Marcy, if you could just talk a little louder into the microphone too, that would be great for everyone to just hear you a little bit clearer. Thank you. Our second resolution in front of us is to amend an existing contract to provide outside investigative services on cases. This resolution is 273 of 2020. If approved, it would allow for additional expenses included but not limited to mileage, documents, records, and photos. This again would be covered by the ILS grant funding. I have a motion on the floor to discuss this. This motion is made by Supervisor McDevitt and seconded by Supervisor Leggett. Thank you very much. Marcy, could you talk a little bit about this need?
Sure. We have grant funding from Indigent Legal Services for investigative services. I've received a contract from one particular agency. We may not be using this one for everything. We could use different contracts based on the services that we need. But in this specific contract, there is mileage, cost for documents and records and photos. This is an agency that is used by other public defenders' offices in this region and has already been approved by ILS as an agency that they deem acceptable. And therefore, I would like to be able to use them if necessary. I have not contracted them with them at all yet. We have not spent any money on it, but I just wanted to include the requirements that were in the contract pursuant to the county attorney's recommendation.
Thank you. Are there questions regarding this resolution? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We do have discussion items to talk about today. One of those pending items has been the continued discussion regarding office leased space for the public defender's office. To recap very quickly, Marcy has had the ability and the approval from this board to apply for grant funding and mostly, almost always, covered nearly, if not 100%, nearly 100% by funding. Her caseload has also been growing and growing to a point of concern. Her space has been a concern about security risks as well. And she has worked very hard to try to find a solution and been incredibly flexible. And I think as we start talking more virtually and going remote, if in fact, and it looks like it's headed in that direction, I know she's going to talk about the court's recent decision for some remote hearings. I think what she would like to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to talk a little bit more about her efforts and and also efforts of this committee. I know Supervisor Beatty with facilities, County Administrator Moore, Kevin Jones, Chris Yanchit. I know there's been a lot of discussions about how best to resolve this issue. And some options work and some just don't work. So I think it's important that you hear from Marcy about why this continues to be a priority in her office, and perhaps not in the next month, but certainly as we look forward to the next several months and the next years with Marcy in our public defender's office. So Marcy, can you just give a little bit of a recap on this important issue?
No problem. First, I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the meetings that we've had. We've had several of them in terms of space in the DSS building. At this point in time, there was 2 offices on the 2nd floor of DSS. They would require refurbishing. Kevin Hayes provided me with a doc with an email in terms of the cost, which is over $33,800 to refurbish those 2 office spaces. In addition, we're still waiting for the cost estimate for how much space that is to rent, because obviously I have to use any funding for this project is coming from Office of Indigent Legal Services. And Office of Indigent Legal Services doesn't have me have a line that says for renting space. So I have to take it out of other things that I already have funding for, such as continuing education or any mentor program, whatever other services I have, but there's no specific line for renting space because it's a new issue since COVID. But ILS has indicated, yes, we will work with you, and it's important you have to have your staff in. So as a result of the COVID, I had to remove one office and make it into a conference room because of the new rules in terms of how many people you can have per room. I had 2 open positions to hire. One is the 8th Assistant Public Defender, and one is a coordinating, which is a supervisory position. With a case, so after COVID, things slowed down, no question about it. Things have sped up all the way now. So I'm jumping ahead just to the court piece to keep it all in perspective. Now we no longer have grand jury. The existing grand jury has to finish up. No more grand jury. You can't have a jury trial. You can't have a bench trial. So all these things are shutting down. In addition, in Queensbury Court starting today, they are only hearing someone if they're scheduled for an arraignment or if they're taking a plea. So if you're on for continuation of your case or status, you don't appear. So that is a concern for me that things are moving in a negative direction in the court system. This county doesn't control the court system. Office of Indigent, OCA controls the court system. So I am concerned about that. But I do need another attorney. And so you gave me permission to hire for the 8th, and I have. I've hired a young lady who is starting on December 28th. And I'm going to put her office probably in my conference room so that I can get her in here. She has already done a felony trial, and she's done 3 misdemeanor jury trials. These are all jury trials. So she comes with experience from Long Island. She is not a new person. So to me, that's a huge issue, being able to hire someone who has experience. So the question becomes, what am I going to do about the coordinating attorney? Well, at this point, I am concerned that the courts are moving more towards a shutdown, and I need that 8th position more than I need the coordinator. So I'm going to hold off on the coordinator. So the 2 spaces that are in this human services building doesn't really solve my problem. I'm looking at a long-term solution. Obviously, my personal opinion for a long-term solution is if the centralized arraignment part was moved into the Warren County Jail, because they have security there, they could handle it all there, and that would free up the space in the old jail without major refurbishing. The space where the court part is now in the conference room and the judge's office in the back that they created, and there's a bathroom back there. This person would have to go into our security like they always do. So to me, that would be a perfect space for a perfect solution for my office space. So I'm looking in terms of a bigger picture in terms of a solution. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman Seaver. So Marcy, are you saying if we can convert, did I catch that right? If we can convert the central arraignment, the after hours arraignment area into office space, that would work for you?
That would be perfect.
And that would be preferable altogether. It would keep your activities and your people
all in one area.
Okay.
Because if we're renting space for my office over the human services building, I can't have anybody who does family court cases over there because that's a problem for the clients to be going into the building where the witnesses are that they may run into as walking through the hallway or going up on the elevator to the second floor. Keeping everybody in the same space would be good. I know there was a discussion at one point, if there's some space in the sheriff's department, that would not work no matter for any clients. So then the issue has come up, how about the basement? The elevator isn't working. I don't know about the heating, air conditioning, safety issues, but I feel that it would be placing my clients in a second-class citizen category, bringing them down into the basement. Nobody else has offices down in the basement. And I just feel that the perception, we've worked so hard in my office to have the office look like a professional law office, because that's what we are. And moving into the basement, I think takes away from that. And again, that's my personal opinion. I know I don't control all the issues, but I thought it was important for you to know, but having done this for so long on both sides, that the image that we would have for the clients makes it even harder for us. And also the security, there's no security downstairs.
And if I can do a follow-up question on that. Do you think the central arraignment area, the after-hours arraignment, would work over in the sheriff's complex over there?
That was one of the proposals originally. I supported that at the beginning, and that concept did not follow through. They moved it to here. I think it would work over there. I've had a little brief discussions with the sheriff on it, and it's something he was willing to explore. I have not had a recent discussion with him on it at all.
And logistically, with your attorneys going over there, that would work?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Not a problem whatsoever.
Thank you.
Supervisor Leggett, I asked Marcy to continue to have this as an issue on our agenda as a criminal justice committee, because I think it's important that we focus on it and keep it in front of our committee members here. I was hopeful that perhaps we could also address it in your committee, Supervisor Leggett.
We'll pick it up.
Thank you. And just so you all have a history as well, I have had the opportunity to have discussions with our county administrator regarding this. He has indicated to me that I believe it was a few months ago, right, Ryan, you had spoken with the sheriff and you were following back up in the near future regarding those discussions too. I just think if we all work together from the committee and the administration standpoint with our sheriff and our public defender, that perhaps we could come to a resolution that would be a safe and speedy one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I haven't personally been in the jail since bail reform came about. I want to go over there and I've talked to the sheriff about doing that. So I'm going to go over in the very near future, take a look at what the staffing situation is over there and whether we have the ability to move the cap court. Is something that, as Supervisor Leggett said, and I believe Marcy said, the sheriff has brought it up in the past. And if it worked for everybody to move that function over there, we would actually save some money on security.
Right. Well, I appreciate everyone's out of the box thinking on this, and I certainly look forward to Sheriff LaFare's comments on it and for your support as well, Supervisor Leggett. And, Marcy, just know all hands are on deck here. We're all trying to work together to come up with a solution that's safe for your staff and for your clients.
And I appreciate everyone's time and concern. And I do believe that everyone does I totally 100% support that. Thank you very much.
And there are other items that any supervisor would like to bring today before criminal justice. Don, is there any public comment?
No, Chairwoman Seaver, no public comment at this time.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. And that motion is made by Supervisor Shepherd, seconded by, I'm looking directly at Supervisor Diamond. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our committee this morning is now adjourned. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.